You know how breakups are supposed to mean a clean slate? No more responsibilities, no more entanglements. Yeah, well, that's not what happened in my case. I, 30s, broke up with my girlfriend of nearly 4 years after realizing we were heading in completely different directions. I thought that was the hard part. Turns out it was just the beginning. She's still living in my house. She has no job. She pays for literally nothing. And now she's demanding that I continue covering all of her bills, even after the breakup. Because, in her words, I owe her for supporting her dreams. I'm talking rent, groceries, her car note, phone, everything. She's acting like I'm a severance package instead of an ex. I don't hate her. I'm not even angry, but I'm confused and frustrated beyond belief. Am I the butthole for refusing to pay my ex-girlfriend's bills? We met through mutual friends at a concert about 4 years ago. Her name's Kira, not her real name, but close enough. She was funny, smart, and had this kind of chaotic energy that made everything feel exciting. At the time, I was working a stable tech job and she was doing some fashion merchandising work. We hit it off quickly. Kira moved in with me about a year into the relationship. It wasn't supposed to be anything too serious yet, just a trial run, see how we worked under the same roof. But to be honest, I was already invested. I had a decent 2-bedroom condo that I owned, so financially it just made sense. She could save money, we could split responsibilities, and I wanted her to feel supported. In the beginning, things were solid. We cooked together, laughed a lot, made dumb late-night grocery runs. It felt like a real partnership. She was the kind of person who had big dreams, always bouncing from one idea to another. I liked that about her. It kept life interesting. I didn't mind taking on a bit more financially at the time. I figured we were building something together. Temporary imbalance in exchange for long-term growth. I wasn't keeping score. I genuinely believed we had something real. That's what makes this all so hard to process. Because somewhere along the way, things stopped feeling like we. And I started to feel more like her personal safety net than her partner. About 2 years into living together, Kira came home one day, dropped her purse on the floor, and said she couldn't do it anymore. She was done with the corporate world. Her job was toxic, unfulfilling, and not aligned with her purpose. She said she wanted to quit and figure things out. I'll admit, I respected it at first. She was clearly unhappy, and I told her that if she needed a few months off to reset, I'd cover things while she got back on her feet. It wasn't a big deal. I was doing okay financially, and I believed in her. She talked a lot about freelancing, maybe starting her own fashion brand or a blog. For the first couple of weeks, she was always on her laptop, researching, writing notes, planning. It looked promising, but those planning sessions turned into long naps. Then into Netflix binges. Then into endless scrolling on her phone while I cooked dinner and cleaned up afterward. Weeks became months, and nothing was ever launched. She wasn't working. She wasn't applying for jobs. She wasn't even really trying. At first, she'd tell me she was still building her vision. Then it turned into, I'm feeling blocked. And eventually, no explanations at all. Meanwhile, groceries, utilities, rent, gas, her car payment, her credit card minimums, all of it started falling to me. She didn't even offer to cover the little things anymore. Not even her coffee runs or streaming subscriptions. It wasn't that I minded helping, but it was starting to feel less like support, and more like full-on dependence. And it was no longer temporary. She wasn't just figuring things out. She was settling in, on my dime. At one point, I made a list just to get it straight in my own head. I was covering the mortgage, obviously. That was always mine. But I'd also been paying for all the groceries, both of our phone bills, her car insurance, her gas money, her health insurance, internet, streaming services, dog food for the rescue she insisted on adopting. The list kept going. She had no income, not even a part-time hustle. And yet the expenses kept growing. If something broke, I replaced it. If we ran out of anything, I bought it. When her car needed repairs, I paid. When her laptop died, I got her a new one so she could work. Spoiler, she didn't. To keep up, I started picking up freelance gigs after hours. Web design, light coding, even troubleshooting calls for random clients. I was working until midnight some days just to stay ahead of the expenses. And still, she never offered to contribute, not once. I didn't yell. I didn't blame. I just sat her down one night calmly and said, "Hey, I know you've been in a weird place, but can we talk about money? I'm carrying a lot right now." She teared up immediately, told me I was stressing her out, said I wasn't being patient with her process, that I used to be proud of her for dreaming bigger. She flipped the conversation until I felt guilty for even bringing it up, like I was the bad guy for wanting a partner, not just a roommate with benefits and a tab. Every time I tried to gently talk about finances, I ended up apologizing. Somehow, she always found a way to turn the spotlight back onto my tone, my timing, my lack of support, and I kept quiet. For a while. As time went on, things between us started to change in a way I never expected. The closeness we once shared slowly faded, replaced by silence and coldness. It felt like she was pulling away emotionally, and I didn't know how to stop it. Our conversations became short and strained. I tried to ask what was wrong, but she often brushed me off or said she was just stressed. The tension built up, especially around money. What started as small disagreements turned into full-blown arguments. I brought up how I was covering most of the bills, hoping she would help, or at least understand. Instead, she would either get defensive or accuse me of nagging. She rarely took responsibility and often flipped the conversation, making it seem like I was the one causing the problem. She also started acting more entitled. She expected me to pay for everything without question. Rent, groceries, her phone, even some of her personal expenses. When I mentioned maybe sharing some costs or at least contributing, she made me feel guilty, saying things like, "I'm doing my best," or "You don't understand how hard it is for me right now." At the same time, she showed less interest in our relationship. She stopped asking about my day or caring about how I felt. The little things that once meant a lot, like cooking together or watching a movie, became rare or didn't happen at all. It felt like I was living with a stranger. Despite all this, I held on to hope. I wanted to believe she'd pull through, that things would get better. I kept telling myself that love means patience and understanding, even when it's hard. But deep down, I started feeling used and worn out. It was becoming clear that maybe, just maybe, I was the only one still trying. She sat me down one evening and said she needed to talk. Her voice was calm but distant, almost rehearsed. "I think we need to break up," she said simply. I was stunned. I asked why, trying to keep my tone steady. She said she needed to find herself, and that she couldn't do that while tied down. She needed space to figure out who she really was outside of the relationship. I felt a mix of hurt and confusion. After everything, I hadn't expected this, but I kept my cool. I told her I understood and that I wanted the best for her, that if space was what she needed, she should have it. I thought breaking up meant she'd move out and we'd part ways respectfully. I never imagined she'd expect me to keep footing her bills or stay tied to the mess she left behind. But for a moment, I allowed myself to hope that maybe, just maybe, this was a chance for both of us to grow. Just when I thought I understood where we stood, she dropped a bombshell. After the breakup, she told me she wasn't planning to move out anytime soon. Instead, she expected me to keep paying all the bills: rent, utilities, groceries, phone bills, the whole thing. She said it was part of helping her transition into her new life. I was completely blindsided. She explained that since I had supported her dreams for so long, quitting her job to focus on freelancing and school, I owed her this. According to her, all the money and effort I put in gave her the right to stay in the house and have her bills covered. She painted it like I was the generous one for even agreeing to this arrangement. I tried to stay calm and polite, even though inside I was confused and frustrated. I told her that it wasn't fair or sustainable for me to pay for everything while she didn't contribute. I reminded her she had promised to find work, or at least chip in eventually. But she dismissed my concerns, saying I was being selfish and unsupportive. It felt like the rug had been pulled out from under me. I was doing everything I could to be understanding, but this felt like she was taking advantage of me. I wasn't sure how to say no without causing more conflict, but I knew I couldn't keep going like this. The situation was becoming more than just complicated. It was hurtful and unfair. Soon after, things got even worse. She started telling our mutual friends that I was abandoning her, that I was cruel for not continuing to support her after the breakup. She painted herself as the victim, and suddenly I was the bad guy. Messages from people in our social circle began flooding my phone. Some friends asked if I was really being that heartless. Others warned me to be careful because they believed she was struggling and needed support. I was caught off guard. It was like everyone was turning against me, but I hadn't done anything wrong. Or at least, I thought I hadn't. I started doubting myself. Was I really being unfair? Was I just not understanding her side? The guilt crept in slowly, making it hard to stick to my boundaries. Part of me wanted to apologize and fix things, even if I knew deep down that I shouldn't have to. But the more I listened to her version of the story, the more I realized she was manipulating the situation to make me look bad. It was frustrating and exhausting. I felt like I was fighting a battle on two fronts, with her and with people who didn't know the full truth. After weeks of frustration and endless back and forth, I finally had to set a firm deadline. I told her she had 30 days to find a new place and move out. I thought that was reasonable. Enough time for her to get everything in order without dragging this out indefinitely. When the 30 days passed and she still hadn't moved, I gave her an extra 15 days, extending the deadline to 45 days total. I wanted to be fair and patient, but I also needed to protect my own mental health and space. Despite this extension, she refused to leave. Instead, she doubled down on playing the victim. Whenever I mentioned the deadline, she'd break down emotionally, telling me things like, "If you kick me out now, I'll be homeless. I don't have anywhere else to go." She acted like I was the one ruining her life, and I couldn't help but feel the weight of her desperation. I offered to help her find a place, even offered to help with the search or contact friends who might take her in temporarily. But she turned down every offer. It became clear she wasn't interested in moving on. She wanted to stay exactly where she was, relying on me for support. The emotional manipulation was exhausting. Her constant pleas and dramatics made it difficult to stay firm, but I knew I couldn't let this continue. I was stressed and drained. The deadline was my way to set a clear boundary, but she kept pushing it, making me question myself and my decisions. I realized that if she wouldn't leave voluntarily, I might have to take stronger steps to protect myself. After everything, I took a step back to really think about what was happening. I realized that I wasn't just being generous or supportive, I was being used. Worse, she wasn't just taking advantage of my kindness. She was actively manipulating me. That feeling of guilt I had was real, but I started understanding it wasn't my fault. I had done so much for her, and still she was trying to make me feel responsible for her situation. It was clear that this couldn't go on. I knew I needed to protect myself, so I began setting firmer boundaries. I stopped bending over backwards and started putting my own well-being first. It wasn't easy, but I understood it was necessary. At the end of the day, I wanted to be a good person, but I also had to stop letting her control me with guilt and emotions. This realization was painful, but it gave me the clarity I needed to move forward. She's still living in the house, not paying a single cent toward rent, bills, or groceries. Every day, it feels like it's my responsibility to figure out how she'll get by, even though I've made it clear that I can't keep supporting her. She acts like I owe her everything, like it's some kind of ongoing obligation because of our past relationship. We barely talk anymore, except when we have to discuss logistics, like who's going to handle what bill or when she's moving out. There's no warmth left, no shared plans or future. It's all just cold, necessary communication to keep the peace while I try to protect myself emotionally and financially. I've stopped hoping she'll change or start pulling her weight. At this point, I just want her gone so I can reclaim my life. It's frustrating, exhausting, and honestly, heartbreaking in a way I didn't expect. I want her to be okay, but I can't be the one keeping her afloat anymore. I'm at my limit, and I know something has to give. I want to be clear. I don't hate her. I want her to succeed and land on her feet someday. But I'm done being her financial support system. I've given more than enough, and it's taken a toll on me. I've tried to be patient and understanding, but at some point, I have to put my own well-being first. So here I am, asking Reddit, am I the butthole for expecting her to take responsibility and move on without me paying all her bills? I need an honest answer. Looking back, I've learned a tough lesson about boundaries and self-respect. Supporting someone you care about is one thing, but enabling unhealthy dependence is another. I truly wish her the best in life, just not at my expense anymore. I hope sharing my story helps others recognize when it's time to say no and stand firm. Thanks for reading and weighing in. I'm ready to listen and learn from this community.